Hello everyone. Welcome to Sustainable Living with Shilpa Reddy, powered by Planet Green's Farm Natura, a new beginning to your life. On today's episode of Dates County Nature's Tycoon, I have with me an entrepreneur who is recognized as a champion of change by our Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji and won a national award for marketing Indian handlooms on e-commerce. He is the founder of GoCoop. Let's welcome Shiva Devireddy on my show. Welcome to my show, Shiva Garu. I'm really honored that you're on my show. In fact, last year also I wanted you to be on my show, and somehow, it didn't happen. Before we start, I don't know if you remember, we were briefly introduced to each other by Amla Garu.
Correct అండి.
And even till today, she talks about you very fondly for the kind of work you're doing and how you've been a game changer when it comes to Indian handlooms. So thank you once again for being on my show.
A pleasure అండి, and I think Amla garu is very generous, and thanks to you, and I'm glad to be part of the show.
Thank you. So when did the idea strike you to connect Indian weavers and help them sell their products on e-commerce?
I'll have to go a little back in terms of my whole journey.
Yes, please.
So, yeah, I started my career in the Bay Area. This was back in year 2000.
Okay.
So I graduated from Arizona State, and I was working in San Francisco Bay Area. And we were building a marketplace platform which was connecting the semiconductor manufacturers from China and Taiwan, and obviously Taiwan is the keyword in this context in this day,
Right.
with OEMs or manufacturers in North America.
Okay.
So this was my first career assignment, and I think we were building this platform, and it was quite phenomenal to see that we could connect producers from a totally different part of the world who speak a totally different language.
Oh.
With buyers from a completely different part of the world who didn't understand the same language but who could collaborate using a digital platform.
Okay.
So this was my first experience, and right from that time, so back from 2000, I always had this thought in my mind, can we connect Indian producers,
Okay.
Indian cottage industry potentially with buyers not only in India but outside India.
Okay.
So I had this thought in my mind, and also while I was growing up, I come from a place in Guntur district, and where we have a lot of weavers in and around our village.
Okay.
And we have seen artisans growing up. So we have seen
Okay.
them, and we used to go to a lane where it used to be filled with weavers, and it used to be difficult to pass through that lane because they were warping, and they were actually doing the pre-loom operations. And having seen them grow up as we were growing up, I was also intimately familiar with the skills that India has, right? So and honestly, these are not skills that we have built in the last 25-30 years like IT skills, Andy.
That's
I mean, if I can be a little loud about it, saying that these are really the skills that India has, and these are thousands of years old.
right.
And these are skills which are practiced over generations.
Yes.
Even if somebody wants to pick up and become an artisan immediately, it is possible, but it's not that easy.
Right.
You need to have that lineage, and you need to have that experience to become a master craftsman or a master artisan. So what I was intimately familiar with is that we have these skills, and also there is potential demand for these products, because having worked in US, Europe, and then back in India, I saw that there is growing demand for Indian handlooms and Indian handicrafts.
That's true. Yes.
And they are not only known for our quality, Andy, but it is actually known for the excellent craftsmanship we have.
Yeah, the technique.
Exactly.
Is it right to say that no other country on the planet has ever produced anything like India does when it comes to handlooms?
Absolutely, Andy. I think India has the largest number of artisans in the world, hands down. There's no doubt about it. And in handloom, it's said that India has more than 85% of the looms worldwide.
Wow.
So we are like a predominantly, I think especially in traditional textiles, maybe globally. So there is growing demand, and I think the problem seems to be the supply chain or the value chain, right?
Correct.
An artisan who's making this product, who's actually having these deep skills, finally is producing these products, but they go through a lot of intermediaries before it finally comes to a consumer.
Yes.
Right? So And these intermediaries have come into place over a period of time. And I think maybe at some point of time there was a role for all these intermediaries to play, because that's how value chains have developed. But now finally what is happening is that the artisan is finally not making much from the whole process.
Spoke to few people and it's not even 1/4.
Not even 1/4, and you'll be surprised, not even 1/6.
Oh.
Less than 15% of the proceeds goes back to the artisan.
Wow.
Yeah. So the statistics are quite alarming, Shilpa Garu. So if you see in a country with over 10 million artisans, more than 60% of them are making less than 5,000 rupees a month.
Oh my God.
So that's less than $60 a month.
That's an artist you're talking
and that's
about.
less than $2 a day.
That's so unfair.
That's so unfair, right? I mean, today if you call a technician who comes to fix your water purifier or your AC, my estimate is they charge around 650 rupees an hour, right? Or less than an hour.
That's
for fixing something like that. And these are skills which are learnt in a period of time, right? Much more easily acquired. But someone who's practicing a craft which is so difficult, takes so many years to acquire, is not even making $2 a day.
Right.
So the markets have been very unfair to the makers. I mean, let me put it that way.
Absolutely.
So I had this thought in back of my mind for a long time. I was a director with Accenture. I had a chance to work in Europe and also in India, multiple locations, Bombay, Bangalore, and then in Hyderabad. But back of my mind, I always had this thought that, I had to do something where I can use technology to impact people at the bottom of the pyramid.
Right.
So deep inside, I always believe that you can bring social change through technology.
Right.
When I looked at this problem, when I could understand that, that we have millions of artisans on one side, we have a pretty growing market on the other side, global market on the other side. So the idea was simple. Can we build a platform which can connect the makers of India with consumers and buyers across the world? And that is how GoCoop was born.
Wow. Such a beautiful journey, and the whole idea behind it is to bring a socio and economic change for the weavers community.
Absolutely, Andy. I think the main thing is, as an artisan, today they are mostly nameless, faceless.
Yes.
Because somebody is taking the product, somebody weaves it, finally it goes to some fashion show, finally somebody else gets credit for the work that they have done.
Yes.
I feel that fair credit should be given to everybody in the value chain.
That's
right?
true.
What we wanted to do was basically digitally enable the artisans, create an identity not only for the artisan, but also for the craft cluster.
Okay.
And the beautiful products that they're making.
Right.
Because let me tell you, I'm sure you're a designer yourself, and you must be very familiar that I just came back from a trip. I did a roadshow in US, Andy. Across 5-6 states. I was traveling, showcasing the beautiful hand weaves of Telangana, Andhra, across India. And you'd be surprised that people who wear saris a lot, who are a lot into handlooms and handicraft, they would not be familiar with, let's say, if I say something like Narayanpet sari. So then they'll be saying, like, oh, Narayanpet, I think I've heard about it, but I'm not so sure.
Yes.
So a lot of our own crafts itself, I think, there's very little awareness of these crafts and the clusters. So the idea is not only to digitally enable the artisan, but to create a lot of awareness about the crafts and also the, the product finally, because every product has a history to it.
Yes.
For example, we talk about Jamdani, right? So Jamdani means woven air. Why was it called woven air? What is so special about Jamdani? So there's so much of story that we can tell, right? There's so much of history behind that product that people need to know it. And that's what we are trying to do through GoCoop, enable the artisans, and not only the artisans, but the products and the clusters. And we are able to communicate this to consumers and buyers who are trying to buy these products, from anywhere in the world.
Right. So this is such an ambitious project, and there's scope to grow leaps and bounds. But the challenges.
Yeah.
What were the challenges that you faced, especially traditional Indian weavers, most of whom I think they don't even know of internet, or they have never imagined selling their produce on e-commerce platforms. How difficult was it to convince, train, advise?
The phrase that I use most often is, you're trying to sell online business or e-commerce to someone who has never seen a computer before.
Yes.
So it was indeed very challenging, Andy. So when we started off in 2012, end of 2011, early 2012,
Okay.
so 10 years ago, we didn't have 3G.
Yes.
Smartphones were very, very small. Hardly people had smartphones.
Right. You're
So,
right.
in those days, we traveled cluster to cluster. My first few years was traveling across 45 clusters at that time in Karnataka, Telangana, and Andhra. It was a combined state at that time, and Orissa. So in these 3-4 states, we traveled to 45 clusters and we conducted workshops explaining them about online business, e-commerce, and how technology is changing now, how anybody from anywhere in the world can buy a product using an online platform.
Wow, you went through all that.
So we traveled across, it was like a amazing journey across these clusters for almost a period of 2 years. And that's when we had, after a lot of convincing, we had 75 artisans who signed up for our platform.
Wow, it's like you went back to square one.
Yeah, this was my Swadesh movement, Andy. I mean,
Yeah, this is
traveling across
commendable.
But I think the interesting part was, if you fast forward to 2014, things started changing, right? I mean, there's a lot of awareness about digital, connectivity was becoming more omnipresent.
Right.
Smartphones were becoming more accessible. So it was becoming easier for people to understand the potential of online, and they were also seeing the benefits of online.
Right.
They were able to access information more easily on their phones. WhatsApp was becoming more popular. From 2014 onwards, it was much easier to get artisan groups, and convince them to come online.
Okay.
So that problem was slightly mitigated, in a few years' time.
Okay.
But the other bigger problem, and as a designer, I'm sure you would appreciate this more than anyone else, is about curation.
Right.
Is about quality, right?
That's true. And especially when you're handling so many different kinds of clusters.
Crafts and so many categories.
Categories.
So the problem is that mostly artisans are making products for their local market requirements. But when we are doing an online platform, we are talking about people mostly in urban areas, people outside the country, what kind of product they would be liking, right?
Right.
So we had to again educate artisans on understanding demand. What kind of products would customers be looking for? What is the color palette that usually we think would sell? What kind of price points? So basically, how do you start, understanding demand and start making some product development based on that demand? This was more challenging than the first obstacle we had. And this is an ongoing challenge for us.
Okay.
So every cluster we go to, like including Narayanpet, for example, we have done multiple workshops.
Okay.
And we do the workshops, we take our designers, we actually help them understand what kind of colors we think will sell. How, like in some cases, artisans were making silk saris which had a lot of sheen on them.
Okay.
And we were telling them that, sometimes so much sheen may not be ideal for a consumer who wants to buy these saris.
Okay.
So things about quality control, from their point of view, loose ends, loose picks are okay, right? But
okay. Yes.
but from a consumer point of view, those are considered as quality issues.
Yeah.
So how can you minimize it? I'm sure we cannot avoid it, but how can you minimize it?
Because they're handmade, those differences
Aberrations will
there.
always be there. Yeah. So again, this was a big process for us in building product curation and quality into our supply chain.
Okay.
And it's an ongoing process. It's taken us a good amount of time.
Right. So you have teams whom you train and then send them out to, again, train these clusters?
No, actually it's a team, it's a common team, and we travel to all clusters.
Okay.
So basically we do like a cluster visit every 3 months.
Okay.
And whenever we visit a cluster, then our team will actually also impart the knowledge they have gained.
Okay.
So we'll also tell them what sold, what didn't sell.
Okay.
And even from that, I think there's a lot that the artisans can learn.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So whoever has signed up with GoCoop, have you seen a considerable change in the way they earned their living and changed how they were before to how they are right now?
Absolutely. I think I think the bigger change is yet to come. But what I have seen is when we are creating an identity for a person, right, and you're telling him that you can stand on your own feet,
right,
and you can sell your products yourself. That's very powerful, Andy. I mean, because someone who's used to just doing work for somebody else,
depending completely on the
completely
middle
on someone to
person.
give him work. But now you're saying, you know what, you can develop products which not only sell locally but can also sell nationally and potentially globally. And you can do your own, build your own enterprise. And if you are an existing cooperative or an enterprise, you can develop your enterprise. I think giving that kind of perspective and giving that kind of a belief, right? I think is can go a long way.
Okay.
What we have also done is created identity for them.
Okay.
So, like for example, I don't want to take too much credit, but Pochampalli Weaver Cooperative Society and Koilgudam Cooperative Society. These are two cooperative societies which are almost been there for, I think, more than 70 years now. I think one of them is close to 75 years of existence. I would call them as heritage organizations.
Okay.
But how many of us are familiar with them? Right? People in Hyderabad, if you ask, how many of them are familiar that a village called Koilgudam even exists?
Right. Not many.
Not many. And it's hardly like an ORR, I think it will take you 1 hour, it will take us 1 hour from here. So when you're creating identity for these craft clusters and these craft organizations, there is a lot of benefit that they can get just by getting that awareness. So I have customers, when we started working with Pochampalli 7 years ago, people were not very familiar with the Pochampalli Weaver Society.
Okay.
But now through online and even customers from US now are so familiar with the society that there are people who come to Hyderabad airport, directly go to Pochampalli from the airport, buy products from the cooperative, come back to the airport and fly out of the airport.
Wow, this is a huge transformation.
Yeah, and we will take some credit for it, Shilpa Garu. So, I mean, it's not a big deal, but according to me, creating identity for them is the biggest impact we have created.
What about finance?
Yeah, financially. So through the supply chain, when they are selling to the local market as compared to selling through GoCoop, minimum 15 to 30% you can realize better price for their products. Minimum.
That's a huge percentage.
In terms of if you look at artisan wage, that's almost 100% increase in artisan wage.
Wow. Okay, that explains.
Yeah, so there is definitely a financial impact, and also not just about at one time, right? So sometimes, let's say there are platforms which can give impact at one point of time, and that's it. It's like one blip in the ocean, right?
That's right. Huh.
But we have seen artisan groups actually develop. In fact, yesterday, Kaluramji, he's from Rajasthan. He's been one of our very old, I think almost now 4 years he's been with us as an artisan partner.
Okay.
He practices shibori.
Okay.
As a technique. He has 20 women from backward community that he works with, and they do shibori, practice shibori craft. They make dress materials, dupattas, stoles, right? He was sharing me yesterday that he has actually built his own house now.
Wow. It's a dream. Probably they didn't even dream.
Exactly. So, this kind of change where artisan groups are not only making a living, but they can have their own pakka house at some point of time. People are now, there are some groups who make almost 8-9 lakhs a month from us.
Wow.
Small artisan or a weaver in a cluster to becoming an entrepreneur and to do 8-9 lakhs on just one platform a month. I think it's a pretty.
It's a huge leap, not even a jump, I think.
Yeah, we are very happy, Andy, but at the same time, I think there's a lot to do. I just want to feel also humbled by the size of the problem we are talking about, right?
Right.
More than 1 million artisans, 10 million artisans in India, right? So easily our artisan capacity of this country is 1 lakh crores, more than 1 lakh crores.
Okay. That makes me want to ask you a question like, before independence, Indian textile was the backbone of Indian economy.
Right.
And strategically it was demolished for reasons we don't want to talk about now. But do you see that we can get that glory back with the intervention of technology and all the modern techniques?
This is unfortunately the other challenge we face, Andy, that today we flout brands, foreign brands more than our own textiles and our own crafts. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong in it, right? But what I've seen is that, as I said, there's very little awareness of handlooms and handicraft.
I totally understand that part.
Yeah, and I think, today, if you ask someone, like even a small kid, if you ask them just show them the swoosh, and ask him what that swoosh is, the kid will tell it's Nike. Because there's so much branding which has happened, right?
Correct.
People recognize brands, they understand brands, are intimately familiar with these brands, right? And they believe in those brands. Like if you have to buy a pair of shoes, he wants to buy only Nike because he believes that that's a good brand. Unfortunately, we have not really branded our own textiles. We have not really promoted our own heritage very effectively over a period of time. I think during colonial rule, it was different. There was obvious reasons why it was not done. But also in independent India, in the last 75 years, I feel very little has been done to promote our own crafts and our own handloom textiles.
Yeah, that's true.
So when I had a chance to meet the Honorable Prime Minister and Niti Aayog as part of Champion of Change, one of the suggestions we also gave is similar to Handmade in India, the Make in India campaign. We wanted to suggest that we should promote handmade in India
Okay.
in a big way. So how can we brand handmade in India in a big way that not only domestic consumers but also international consumers can understand what India has
Right.
and what India has to offer. So India has over 3,000 craft forms
Wow. That's handloom and
handicrafts. Yeah,
Okay.
it has over 3,000 craft forms, and these are the craft forms that thousands of years ago Romans came to us. We had so many other traders across the world who came to us for many of these craft forms.
That's right.
So I still think there's a lot of potential, and but I think a lot of branding and marketing is required
Yes.
to make this popular not only with consumers in India but across the world. Yeah.
So, what would you say to young entrepreneurs? How can they contribute to make something like this big and bigger?
There's a big role designers can play,
Okay.
and you being a designer yourself, I think you understand the potential, right? You
That's
can
right,
take
yeah.
a fabric and you can take it all the way to you know a ramp in New York, right? I mean,
That's exactly what I did. I'm the only designer from India who showcased on Eiffel Tower. And the only fabric I used was Malka, Pochampalli in New York. And you wouldn't believe when people saw the fabric, it was like they wanted to come and touch and feel it because they've never seen something so beautiful.
Absolutely.
And they didn't believe it was all hand woven. So there's so much of reverence for our craft and art outside India. As you rightly said, if you brand it and bring that kind of awareness, I think they can do great, not just in India, but across the world.
Absolutely, Andy. So I think the designers can play a big role in this. As I said, the product has to be made more contemporary while carrying the heritage of craft.
That's exactly, oh my God, you're just speaking my words. I'm
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt, but I have to say this. So whenever I design something, I keep saying Indian handloom can also look, like fashionable,
Absolutely.
sexy, and, glamorous.
Absolutely.
So as you said, the same Indian handloom, if used in a silhouette which is appealing to the youth,
Absolutely.
you can aspire them to own and flaunt and take pride in them.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what can make a big impact on this sector. And I think the government of India, and I think we have been seeing some very good initiatives to make this happen.
Yes,
There's a lot more interest and participation from all the NIFTs and all the design institutes.
That's right.
Also, there are some good initiatives like to make handlooms more popular or handmade more popular. Initiatives like Vocal for Local.
Yes.
Some of these I think have worked. I think they have worked and they have created some awareness at
They
least.
did,
right?
of course.
But a lot more has to be done to make them popular. So yeah, I think young entrepreneurs who are willing to work in the clusters, there is so much potential, right? Just in one cluster, I think you can build a 100 crore business.
Wow.
Just in one cluster. And I think it's a shame if India cannot produce 100 such entrepreneurs in the next 10 years. Right.
So that's one thing. But then I also heard that there are not many next generation weavers who want to get into weaving. Can we train the next generation to learn this skill? It's not intrinsic anymore. It's not a lineage anymore. Even if the demand goes up, will we be able to supply, because the weaver community is diminishing at a rapid speed?
I think it's all about demand, and I mean, if you are able to create good demand, because this is a beautiful profession. I mean, if you think of it, this is one of those few professions where you can practice it while by being at home, along with your family, and the entire family participates in the production process.
Right.
So I think if you are able to create fair market for these products, I think there will be a revival.
Financial sustainability, if they see.
Exactly.
They
Yeah.
would
So,
probably.
and that's where I think the development model that we take as a country, as a organizations, right, as a community, if it's more inclusive, and we can, really think about how do we create good market for our artisans, right?
That's right.
And that's what we did hundreds of years ago, or even 50, 60 years ago. Artisans used to weave for a certain communities, right? I mean, just for a few villages, right? And the villages used to support the artisans used to support the few villages that they were working for, people that they were working for. So similarly, I think if as a community, if we can, think of inclusive growth and, how we can support these artisans together, and create good market for their products, I personally feel there can be revival. A lot of younger generation will also come into it.
Okay.
And we are seeing this in many clusters.
Okay, you are. Okay.
Yeah. So like, for example, Maheshwar is a beautiful cluster in Madhya Pradesh.
Yes.
You will see a lot of young artisans in Maheshwar practicing weaving.
Wow, that's so encouraging actually. I was always worried about this aspect, but I'm glad you said you are seeing a change happening.
And the second thing is technology, Andy, because see, in technology, you don't have to, it can be a game changer. So today, digitally first entrepreneurs, right, doesn't mean people coming from Hyderabad or cities like, Bangalore. Digitally first entrepreneurs should come from villages. And that's where the innovation should go next.
Okay.
I think the innovation has to happen there, where a weaver's son should see how he can be an entrepreneur and sell to customers in US.
Oh, that's a very interesting way.
And that's happening already. And we see a lot of those first generation entrepreneurs coming from clusters who are now selling on WhatsApp, who are selling on Facebook, who are selling through platforms like GoCoop, Amazon. And I think, that's a good also enabler for, bringing the next generation into the sector.
Wow, okay. So, you've been a part of a World Economic Forum and UN roundtables. What kind of problems do you address, and what happens at those roundtables?
Okay, you're putting me in a difficult spot. I think this problem is very well acknowledged globally, Andy. The thing is that everybody understands that handloom and handicraft are the second largest source of livelihood after agriculture. They have a huge impact on, rural livelihoods and rural economy.
And their sustainable business
and
models.
their sustainable business models, right? And the best thing, especially now after COVID, after this pandemic, there's so much more focus on sustainability. Handmade products are probably more sustainable, right? I mean, than anything else. I mean,
that's right.
They're sustainable both from a planet point of view and also from a people point of view. So from both aspects. So there's a lot of awareness that, we should do something for this sector, and we've been part of a lot of discussions. But unfortunately, I think we are a fairly market-driven economy, right? I mean,
yes.
I think globally also we talk about what is important and what we need to do, but we always put the money where the market is. So the market has been more on fast fashion, and globally trillions of dollars have been invested on fast fashion.
True.
But whereas we know that it's important to support handmade and promote handmade and sustainable business models, but I don't think there is enough support or in action, right? In reality, I don't think enough is being done to promote this.
But do you think there's no economic benefit if we start supporting this, or is it delayed benefit?
I think there's a great business model here, right? And I think it can be. I mean, as I said, the global market for craft itself is over $700 billion.
Okay.
Just in a country like US, the market is over $250 billion.
Wow.
So the market is really big. But the question is, if you have, unfortunately now people may have burned their fingers, but 2 years ago, if somebody said you'll make 100x investing in Bitcoin, versus you'll get 2x investing in sustainable business working with artisans, what would you do? Right? People will go after 100x that they'll make out of Bitcoin, right? And obviously a lot of people have burned their fingers
now. Yes.
but sustainable business models will not give the kind of returns a lot of people investors expect. If people really see the benefit it's going to do for our society, for people, it's a no-brainer to invest in such business models, according to me, right? But I think
Not too much risk also involved in this, I guess.
these are like long-running businesses. It's not going to go away anytime soon, right?
Correct.
They have also they're very defensible in a way, because today tech can be replaced easily by another tech.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
But when you're building relationships and supply chain on the ground, they are not so easily replaceable. You're having a lot of stickiness in the business model. Yeah, I think I do hope that there's more focus on these models, and especially in sectors like handloom and handicraft. And India has huge potential. I think if there's any country which can create a unicorn in this space, it has to be India.
Wow. So, how many co-ops can India have to address, like you're saying, it's just a small drop in the ocean, but how many more entrepreneurs like you can do something similar that what you're doing to support the entire country's handlooms?
I think, as I said, hundreds of successful entrepreneurs, there's enough space for at least 100 successful entrepreneurs, I feel.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because, as I said, there are so many crafts. Each craft has so much potential, right? I think it will take time, but every craft you can think of 100 crore business, right? Can be built around it. I mean, I'm not saying 100 crore business from a purely like a company point of view. What I mean is the craft economic activity of the craft cluster can easily be over 100 crores.
So I wanted you to say this loud and clear to encourage the youth, so they know there's financial benefit along with also impacting, viewers' lives.
Yeah, absolutely, Andy. So this sector is beautiful in many ways. I think one is, I think the foremost thing which I get really motivated is that it's very creative, right? And there's no end to creativity here.
Correct.
So you can create a new design in sari forever.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and that too in just one craft technique, right? There's so much innovation possible, so much design possible in craft. Second is it's touching human lives, right? You can actually touch people. You're actually working with them on day-to-day basis. You can actually see the change that you're trying to bring. So that direct connect with with the social cause that you're working on can be very motivating for you. Third, as a business itself, right? I think there is enough and more demand, according to me, right? If you are able to do this well, you have to be good at it. I mean, obviously, you're competing with a lot of, a market which is riddled with, a lot of challenges, right? Like, for example, today you will find Kanchivaram silk sari being sold for 2,000 rupees on Flipkart. I mean, it's neither Kanchivaram nor silk, right? So similarly, there's so many other challenges in this sector. So you have to be really good at it. But there is good market and there's good potential to build a social enterprise, multiple social enterprises in the craft sector. At least I would say for the potential India has, 100 successful social enterprises are nothing, right, to solve the problem we have.
And we have many such smart minds who can make this happen.
Absolutely, Andy. Absolutely.
So last but not the least, what is your idea about sustainability, and how do you define sustainability in business sector today's context?
In layman terms, I mean, even before the word sustainability came up, right? I think in India we all believe in something very simple philosophy, right? That everybody should be happy, right? The intent should be that while you prosper and you develop, people around you should also develop, right? Development has to be inclusive.
Right.
So, Sarve Jana Sukhino Bhavantu, right? So, you can be a millionaire, billionaire, and we are creating such big enterprises in this country. But if we are leaving, the bottom half of the country behind, without giving them enough opportunities to even have a decent life, I think we are not following the right development model, according to me. So, to me, sustainability means, developing everybody along with you. So people is aspect is very important for me. Today there is so much divide between urban and rural, rich and poor, So there's all. I think when you talk about sustainability, I think we need to think about people first. How can we develop people who are marginalized? How can we take them along? Right? I think that's the core of sustainability to me. The second comes the planet. But today, unfortunately, when we talk about sustainability, it has all become about planet, more about eco-friendly and eco-conscious and all that. So yeah, so the idea is also that from a planet point of view, if we can have concern about the planet, what products are we developing, what materials are we using in making these products. So sustainability from a planet point of view is the second important thing. Yeah, obviously it's also important to be sustainable from a business point of view.
Yes.
So you have to be profitable. You have to have some profits finally to sustain yourself as an organization. So yeah, people, planet, and profit. I think this is basically sustainability to me.
And I think we always knew how to be sustainable as a country. Now people are coining it, saying inclusive economy and all of that. But we always knew what is sustainability, just being inclusive.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Would you like to add something more?
I think it's each one of us, if we can take pride in our handlooms and handicraft you have a lot of fan following Shilpa Garu. So the idea is that I think all of us should take pride in our handlooms and handicraft, and it's not about supporting someone and making sure that they have a livelihood. But if we all can take a little bit more pride in sporting our own craft, our own traditional weaves, I think that will go a long way in creating sustainability for handloom weavers and handicraft artisans across India.
Absolutely. So it is said that if every woman in the country converts a minimum of 30 to 40% of the her wardrobe into Indian handlooms, we can save a lot of weaves from going extinct, is what I heard. So that is exactly what I keep talking about. So
just one day a week, Andy, if we can sport handloom one day a week, I think the idea is we'll be creating enough work for all the weavers.
Just one day a week?
One day a week.
Probably I should start that at Sustain Cart also.
Just one day a week. Yeah, I think that has so much power, because see, we don't need to do anything out of the way to support someone needy. I think we all have to wear clothes, and these are quite trendy, fashionable. I mean, what you're sporting is very fashionable. So I think these can be very fashionable as well.
True, absolutely.
So if we can just sport our own weaves and take pride in them,
yes,
I think it will go a long way.
And also, it is said that every Indian weave is conducive to the kind of climate we live in.
Exactly, yeah.
And it is only common sense, and to use something that is for our well-being, living in a tropical country like ours.
Absolutely, Andy. I think I have not come in a lungi. Maybe next time I'll come in a lungi. but yeah, I think the fabrics are more breathable, as you know, and rather than wearing Puma cotton or Pima cotton, some Egyptian cotton, which are extremely great fabrics, but would also require air conditioning all the time. For our tropical climate like India, I think khadi and handlooms can be really very suitable for our way of life.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing all your insights, and I hope whoever is watching this show will be inspired to support handlooms and take pride in them. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Shilpa Garu, and it was a pleasure, and wish you all the luck in your sustainable endeavors.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. I hope you enjoyed this inspiring conversation with Shiva Garu. Please do subscribe to my channel. Stay tuned for more updates. See you all next week. Signing off, Shilpa Reddy.